Welcome back to This is a Commander channel, where this is a Commander channel, and today I'm going to talk about Commander Tough Rules and Cool Interactions, episode 31. Today's episode is going to be an interesting one, as I'm going to be talking about a kind of card that doesn't get printed all that often. Every now and then, Wizards of the Coast will print a card that specifies when in a turn it can be played. There are a lot of cards that reference the combat phase, like with Aggravated Assault, and then there are a very small number of cards that reference the beginning phase, like Sphinx of the Second Sun. One thing that is rare to see are cards that reference specific steps within phases. This was a common thing to see in the Portal sets, the original Portal, Portal Second Age, and Portal Three Kings, and this was because those three sets were designed as beginner sets that focused on just creatures and sorceries because those were simple cards and concepts. The problem was they still wanted to have combat tricks for players to play mid-combat, but just putting sorcery and instant on the cards didn't tell the new players what an instant meant, so they made sorceries that had special wording on them to make it clear when you would play them. So outside of these portal cards, we don't have a lot of cards that reference specific steps. The Commander Legends Baldur's Gate set gave us a new card that does this, and it has some interesting interactions with cards that make things get a little strange. So the new card is Windshaper Planetar, which I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which is a creature with flash, and it says, when Windshaper Planetar enters the battlefield during the Declare Attacker's step, for each attacking creature, you may reselect which player or planeswalker that creature is attacking. Clearly, you will use this to save yourself from being swung out, but a lot of players may have a couple questions when it comes to certain cards and effects. The first one that I want to talk about is probably the most common situation that I can see players encountering when a player has a propaganda type restriction out. So here's the scenario. You are player A. Player B controls propaganda, and it's player C's turn, and they declare their attacks, pushing all 10 of their creatures towards you. You flash out your Windshaper Planetar and want to have all 10 of their creatures go instead to player B. To which player B says, you can't do that because player C doesn't have the mana available to pay for any of those attacks. So is player B correct and their propaganda will save them? Sadly for player B, and great for you as player A, the propaganda will not save them, and you can send all of them towards player B. Propaganda will only stop creatures being declared as an attacker, but Windshaper Planetar is brought in after creatures have already been declared as attackers. For more information about this sort of thing, check out Tough Rules and Cool Interactions episode 11, which goes over this sort of thing in more detail. A very similar thing to this would involve a goaded creature. Again, in this scenario, you're player A, and player B has goaded your super scary creature. But player B is the real threat to you at the table, capable of killing you next turn. So players C and D are not much of a threat. You could attack with your goaded, really scary creature towards player C and then flash out your Windshaper Planetar and reassign your goaded creature towards player B now. This gets around the goad stuff. Next scenario. Player B attacks you with their coveted peacock, and they target your scary creature. You flash out Windshaper Planetar and have the peacock now attacking player C. What happens to your scary creature? Will it still be goaded by the peacock's triggered ability? Sadly for them, but good for you again, nope. The ability will basically run a legality check again when it tries to resolve, and because the ability had a requirement for its target and that requirement is no longer met, the ability will fizzle. There's no legal target. Last scenario I want to look at is a similar one to the previous one, but just a tad different. This time, player B attacks you with their Barakos party leader, Barakos, we'll go with Barakos, which says, whenever Barakos attacks, defending player loses X life and you create X treasure tokens, where X is the number of creatures in your party. After they've declared their attack, you again flash out your Windshaper Planetar and have the Barakos sent over to now be attacking player C. Will you still lose X life? And will player B still make the X treasure tokens? Or will the triggered ability again fizzle like in the previous scenario? Those of you who have followed my channel for a short time, it's existed, you may know that I like to do this every now and then, where sometimes I like to give multiple choice answers that may all sound legit, but the real answer isn't initially given. I like to do that and to try to keep you on your toes and try to mess with you a little bit more. In this situation, the ability will not fizzle, like in the previous scenario, since there's no target required. But you also will not be the one losing any life from the ability. While you were initially the attacked player and at one point in time the defending player, you will not be the defending player as the ability resolves from the stack. Now that is player C, so that is who will be losing the life. Anyhow, that's all I've got for today's episode. As always, I hope that all of you found this video to be entertaining at least, and I hope that a few of you even learned something about these crazy rules in this great game of Magic. Have a good one. Ta-ta.